Hey there, welcome Conscious Fashion friends to Inside Fashion Design's weekly community conversations. This is where you can meet and greet with a fashion industry pro. This is your opportunity not only to hear from the experts and their knowledge and advice, but also to connect with them directly to grow your network and use their learnings to level up and empower you in your own career. For 30 minutes each week, we will have a quick chat, the perfect morning break where you will walk away with some good nuggets of advice, tips and tricks, and two of my all-time favorite things, inspiration and community connection. I love building connections because it strengthens our support system. You grow your community and you grow your support, and we can all succeed together. I am continuously finding amazing people through LinkedIn and referrals, and 99.9% of the time, these folks also love to connect, share their experiences and stories, offer advice, and even more recommendations and suggestions. That's why each week you will find us here chatting with a fashion industry pro. So hop on in, join the conversation, say hello, ask a question, share your own tips, stories, favorite resources, or own piece of advice. Follow me on LinkedIn so you don't miss out. Every single week, we'll be chatting with a fashion industry pro. Are you a fashion industry pro and you want to share your story? Message me and let's talk. Who knows, you could be our next featured guest. Thanks for joining us today. Now, let's dive into today's session. Hello, everyone, and welcome today. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Britta.
Nice to see you. Welcome, everyone. If it's your first time here, thank you for joining us. If you are live, please chime in and let us know where you're from, introduce yourself. And if you're watching the replay or listening to the audio, you can still participate in the conversation. You can comment, you can reach out to us. So please share with us. We want you to be part of the conversation around conscious fashion, and we're very excited to have you here. I have a couple action steps for you. Number one, like I said, introduce yourself. We'd love to hear your questions and comments and feedback. Also follow us on LinkedIn. On my LinkedIn page is where our live streams happen about once a week, and you can just pop in anytime, and you can find Rachel on LinkedIn as well. And again, your third step is to join the conversation, ask questions, comments, because that's how we all learn from each other and grow and expand our knowledge. So I'm happy to have you here today at our session. This is Leading Sustainability in the Apparel Process with Rachel Erickson. Rachel is a 20-year industry vet. She is a product management professional. I know you've had several roles in the industry, so you're very well-rounded in your knowledge and all the different aspects of the process. And you are the founder of Unmarked Street.
Yes.
And I know you do a lot of things around education and workshops, and it's a consulting company.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to start just by telling us about Unmarked Street and what you're doing with that. And then we'll dive into some topics around building sustainability in the apparel process.
Absolutely. And first, I just want to say I love the intro. Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, I know that person, and there's that person. It's
Oh,
like
good.
it's such a small community, even though it seems like such a big industry. It's really fun. But
Yeah, I love that.
Unmarked Street. I spent decades in the apparel industry inside the corporate side of everything, working for big brands, and decided in 2021 that I wanted to take all of the different knowledge that I have. Just like you said, I started my career as a technical designer and a pattern engineer, moved into product management later in my life and development, learning a lot more about the number side of the business. And in 2021, felt like I had enough to offer to other brands, smaller brands, more sustainable brands, to be able to really help them figure out what was going on in the corporate side of the industry so that they could perform just as well as they can. And so that kind of became really important to me to not just help by educating these brands on like what different things they can be doing, that the information is really hard to find online. But it was also really important for me to offer the opportunity to like come in and just do it for them, because I know how hard it can be as a small brand to learn something and then implement it, right? Those are two totally different things. Like I can take the time to learn today,
Yeah.
but how am I also going to make the time to implement it? And so that's where our agency side comes in.
That's wonderful. Yeah, we get a lot of inquiries too, and people have these ideas and great, they've done great research, but it's like implementing, having that maybe the right connection, or even how you're speaking to a factory or a sample
Yeah,
maker. A lot of the communication is really important as well. So,
huge.
yeah, that's a great service, and I know you've been doing it for a couple years and have a really great roster of clients that you've worked with,
We
and
do. We
so I
love our
encourage
clients.
people
Yeah.
to. Yeah, yeah, and I'm like you, we were worked in the industry as a, corporate professional for so many years, and I think we get to a certain age or a certain stage in our career when, like, we enjoy sharing the information and we enjoy mentoring, and that's actually what led me to Inside Fashion Design several years ago. So that's a kind of in the same, you know, I guess,
Yeah.
um,
Similar
time in your
story. Yeah.
career, yeah, that it's great that you're available to offer all your knowledge and expertise.
Yeah.
So there were three points we wanted to talk about today. These are short sessions. It's just kind of a coffee break for people. So we're going to cover as much as we can. I can stay a little bit after to answer more questions if they come up and share more information. But the first point I'm going to just dive right in is sustainability and daily operations. So I know sustainability can happen at multiple stages. It could be a sustainable fabric or a method that you're doing. But what about, you trying to achieve that and implement it in just everyday operations? So
Yeah, it's such a good question, and exactly to your point, like, when we talk sustainability in the apparel industry, so often we're talking about recycled fabrics or ethical manufacturing or something along the lines of production or the actual physical product itself. And what we're trying to do here at Unmarked Street is to talk a lot about what does it look like inside your brand? So for you and your company, how do you automatically change your carbon footprint today by changing the way that you do things? And so at Unmarked Street, for us, all day long, that means fittings. The number one thing that we do for our clients is run fittings, write comments. We work with their factories on implementing those changes so that as we get new protos in, things look better and better. And what this means for us is having the right people in the room during a fitting, having someone be organized enough to be making the right notes so that we can write really concise and accurate comments for our factory. This is someone who knows how to manipulate garments and knows how to correlate a garment to a flat pattern really well. So there's kind of a talent aspect and kind of an experience aspect to that, so that we are not making an excess amount of product or samples when we get into more and more rounds. So something that we experience a lot with new clients and new startups is that they're really struggling to get the fit of a garment right. It is a skill that takes years to master. And it can be really difficult to get a fit perfect in like 1 to 3 rounds if you haven't had the chance to master those skills yet. And so what we really like to talk about is bringing someone in who can help you get those number of protos down, because when you're making 5 and 6 protos, when you're making additional sets of size sets, when you have to do 2 or 3 pre-production rounds, a lot of the time what we find is that those samples that didn't turn out the way you wanted them to are just garbage at the end of the day. There's nothing you can do with them other than throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
And there are some additional recycling services that are starting to come out, and we're starting to explore what it could mean in the way of circularity when you have samples like that. But what we are really challenging our clients to do is to get better at the daily operations of your fit process so that you don't have to worry about what all that trash is essentially for your brand.
Yeah, I know there's a lot happening with 3D patterning, and I think we'll get to that a little bit
Yep.
later. But from my experience in the past, before 3D patterning was a thing, I mean, we could do rounds and rounds and rounds of garments. And
Yep.
to your point of super accurate notes, working with a pattern maker, tech person that really understands and knows how to do it makes a huge difference. And then the client side of it too is kind of teaching them and guiding them to gain
Mhm.
an understanding of how it works. And one of my old companies challenged all the designers, if you didn't get it perfected within 3 fits, something was wrong, and
Fair.
they might
Yeah.
bring in, like, management to double check what we're doing because it should never go beyond 3. I mean, maybe it's a brand new style and it's gonna
Yeah.
take a little bit longer, but once you get that block established,
Yeah.
you should just be able to repeat and
You
just
really
build off
should.
of that one, and so, and having experienced, 10 people in a room in a fitting and everyone taking notes
Yep.
or commenting on different things is also, I don't know, I think it's something we don't really think about is how you hold those meetings, who's
Yep.
communicating, how you're communicating are all such key points that you don't really normally think about. You think, you just have a meeting and
Yeah.
make comments and pass it off, but it is so much more, complicated than that, and it takes really effective and clear communication for sure.
It does. And we
Oh.
have, if anybody's interested, we actually have a free fit protocol and checklist on our website. So if you go over to unmarkstreet.com, it kind of spells out for you, like, what should everybody be doing during a fitting. And then if you're running like a tops fitting or something like that, it'll give you a checklist of everything that you should be looking at so you don't forget anything. But some of the feedback that we get on the protocols that we've set are that they're really harsh, and we
Oh,
kind of set up like rules for everybody to be in the room. But it's really, to your point, it's really important to make sure that if you are going to have every single department in a fitting, that they have a role and it's really clear, so that you, like, for example, when I've been at companies before where we have 10 different things we need to try to fit in an hour and a half. And
mhm.
so each item only has a certain amount of time that we can really focus on it. And if we have so many people in the room that the conversation never gets focused, we are never able to get through those meetings or those fittings. And so it might seem harsh to give people rules for meetings like that, but it really will help your process.
Yeah, I wish I had that because we would spend hours, we'd spend the whole afternoon or a whole day, and then you can't get to any of your other work, so,
Right.
so go unmarkedstreet.com and you can find that free guide, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's great guidance and something to consider, and affects the sustainability and the waste and all of that in your overall
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
So the second question is the importance of planning and talent.
Yeah. Yeah. And the talent part speaks directly to what I was just talking about, right? Like, do you have the right people in the right places on your team? Do you have a talented fit technician? Do you have a talented pattern engineer that you can tap into to make sure that every single round of prototypes that you get is getting better and better, so that maybe you do only need two or three, or maybe you can get it in on a first proto and it looks great. Those are the kinds of things that you want to start driving toward. And so, in the way of talent, you want to make sure that you're opening things up to hire the right people for the right jobs.
Mm.
And I think then, in the way of like process and planning, there is a lot in the way of a traditional kind of apparel business model where we see, especially on the performance apparel side of things, where, for example, if you're a running apparel brand, and you want to sell into, I don't know, what is a specialty run shop? I can't think of any right now, but like Road Runner Sports, or you want to sell into Runner's Roost or something like that. We would have what we call a salesman sample process. And Britta, you're probably super familiar with this, but you would get this like kit of samples that's all the new things that you want to sell into this specialty shop, and they get to touch it, they can try it on, they can see how the fabrics look and the colors look, and it's a great sales tool. But at the end of the day, again, all of those samples are trash. And I've been at several companies where we have global sales teams to the point where we're ordering thousands of
Thousands. Yep.
units for our salesman sample kits.
Yep.
And if we can't find some way to reuse those, which is really hard to do because a lot of times it's at a point in your process where it's not really production ready 100%.
Right.
You don't have anything to do with those garments. And so those kinds of processes too, like relooking at what you can do instead of selling with physical samples, how can you sell digitally? And again, that goes back to like 3D that you were mentioning before. How can you use different tools instead of needing actual photographs? Can you use images? Can you sell based off of sketches? There's just a lot that's kind of in the way of rethinking about the traditional process that I think would lead a lot of our brands to being more sustainable.
Yeah, I'm curious how buyers are working now. It's been a little while since I went to an actual retail buyer appointment,
Yeah.
but we used to have our presentation boards, but certain companies wanted samples of every single style we're presenting, even
Yep.
before we showed them, because
Yep.
they just wanted to see it in real life. And I know for a lot of people, it's definitely much easier to understand the garment when you have a physical product. But I think now, I'm assuming today, buyers are starting to understand that there has to be a change and a better process. And yeah, I know there's tons of 3D imaging that you can show
Mhm.
avatars in different sizes. You can show a plus size person or a
Yep.
child size
Yep.
garment. So I know a lot of those tools are out there, and then maybe showing swatches of the fabrics or just a few of the styles. But yeah,
Yeah.
my experience as well is global sales meetings and doing a full sales sample line and shipping them all over the world. And then I don't know what they did with them afterwards. I assume, I don't know, donate, and then eventually they probably get trashed. And
Yeah,
so a
it's tough. I've
huge,
been at companies where they won't even allow you to donate them because they don't want those garments out in the world because they weren't like up to snuff in quality. And so,
right?
yeah, to that point, like at the time, we didn't have a lot of great recycling resources, and we would throw
Just
away
trash them.
bags and
Yeah.
bags of
Yep.
samples. And it was like they were the saddest days when we were
Yep.
at the office.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah,
based
I've
on,
forgotten, like, they do usually have branding on them, so you're right,
yeah,
you can't just get them out into the whole public.
yeah.
When we would go to Asia and bring home samples, we would slice them in the back so
Mhm.
that they were damaged
Yep.
garments, and then again, you've got all these garments that are damaged, and, we'd use them for showing, but then they'd go into the trash after.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
it's a very
big it's a big topic that I don't think enough brands are talking about because the waste that comes from inside your own company from just the development process alone is
yeah,
something that can be rectified and we can put processes in place to do less of that. But I think so many people are looking externally like, how can I be how can I be customer facing, right? Like how can I put a hang tag on that lets them know what we did that makes this more sustainable? Or how can I sell this in a way that makes the actual product more sustainable? And I think there's a lot of work that we can continue to be doing internally too.
yeah, yeah, it's wonderful. I know there's also retailers that are using tools like the virtual try on, the virtual fitting rooms. So once you have a pattern finalized, a person could see it kind of physically on,
Yeah.
virtually to get an idea before you're even going to production, maybe to kind of get pre-orders or using that also for production
Yeah.
quantities and inventory. So
Yep.
there are a lot of those great tools out there too that would help with that, just reducing the fabric. It's cost for everybody. You're not buying less fabric up front. You're not
Mhm.
investing in inventory the way
Yeah.
we used to. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's all huge.
it it's huge, and it's making people aware of what tools are available. So this is
Mhm.
great that you're sharing some of these ideas as ways to help your own process. And
Yeah.
so our third question is getting into the 3D and leveraging AI. So
Yep.
obviously this is huge and it's happening super fast.
It is. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm trying to keep up as a
Same.
designer to learn these things. I'm thinking to myself, if you're a design student and you're graduating soon, like you need to know this.
You have
I
to.
imagine that
Yep.
most of the jobs you have to have these skills. So
Yep.
what are your tools and thoughts on 3D and AI?
Yeah. I got really into 3D almost a decade ago. So when we're talking about how fast things are moving, really researching 3D when it was kind of at the beginning of what it could potentially be for the apparel industry was really, really interesting. We were using Optitex as a
Mhm.
solution, and I had also used Gerber AccuMark's kind of solution. So we were kind of testing both out at different times. And this really came from a pattern engineering side of everything. Like it was at first a way for us to double check whether or not our flat patterns in the system would actually drape on a body properly.
Right.
And then
Mhm.
it started to evolve into a design tool, which was really, really fun because we could then collaborate with our design team and 3D like animate something. And these were so rough back in the day. Oh my goodness. Like they look so much more beautiful now.
Yeah, yeah.
But they could then see right off the bat, like where the seams were going to be laying, how long something was, whether a sleeve length was quite right. We could do like temperature heat maps to see if something
Oh,
was
yeah.
really compressive or tight in a certain area on the avatar. And so it allowed us to start thinking about doing design phases digitally. And I think this was a huge game changer for the brands who adopted it because while we're talking about needing or wanting to get your number of prototypes down for a multitude of reasons, this was a really easy way to do that. And then we started to see factories implement it. And so then we were working with a factory who was doing 3D on their end. So we
Mhm.
would send a tech pack and we would do 2 rounds with them in 3D before they even ordered any sample yardage for us. And it
Mhm.
just really helped move our process along. And what we're now seeing in AI and the way that you can turn like a hand-drawn sketch into a realistic image of what this garment could look like on a body is blowing my mind. Like
Yeah,
this AI stuff is amazing and
it
it's
is.
only going to make this so much better.
Yeah, yeah. I probably about 10 years ago, or even a little bit more, is when I was doing a lot of swimwear and athletic
Mhm.
swimwear, so it was super fitted. It was for teams and for racing and prints.
Yeah.
We were doing a lot of
Yes.
engineered prints, and so we would put that on. It was called a V-stitcher. I don't know if anyone's
Okay,
familiar.
yeah, I know exactly what that
Yeah,
is.
I don't I was that part of, Optitex maybe? I don't
I think it
recall.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we had at our company, and it was so much fun because I would work with an artist to create an engineered on the body pattern, but then you still needed the placement, the
Mhm.
sizing of the artwork. So we would go in there and you could stretch it, make it bigger or shrink it down. You could move it around and it was just super fun and
Yeah.
it gave us so much more freedom of playing with placement. Even if it was, say, a floral print, you could figure out where on the body, the
Yeah.
scale that you needed, and how that's advanced now to today is, like you said, incredible. And
Yeah.
I know there's some free tools. I don't know all the name. There's so many different, you
There
know,
are. Yeah, there are a
AI
lot.
things out there, and I've played with a few where you can just even type in a description, a puffy jacket with quilting with big cargo, big snap pockets and puffy sleeves or whatever. And it just
It's
generates
crazy.
it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so designing that way today, I think would be super fun
Mhm.
like you said, a lot more efficient, a lot more sustainable and all
Yep.
of that. So,
Yeah.
so that's really exciting. Do you have favorite tools that you like to use in 3D, like the patterning software or other AI tools that you're currently using or recommend people could check out?
That's a great question. I'm a pattern engineer traditionalist, so I tend to use like some really robust pattern engineering software when I can. Optitex is still one of my favorites that I think I've ever used. But when I started my business, I mean, Optitex is a very expensive software solution that most corporations are able to buy into. And if you can afford it, I think it's a great tool for you to have. But Clo 3D ended up being
Mhm.
the resource that we gravitated to at Unmarked Street when I started the consulting company because it can be a very lower cost solution with very good results. And so I also think that Clo 3D is very user friendly in
Mhm.
comparison to a lot of the other more pattern engineering versions of software. Like Optitex is very difficult to use if you don't understand pattern engineering, whereas
Okay.
Clo
Mhm.
3D I think can be easy to use even if you don't understand pattern engineering. So there
Okay.
are some really like interesting nuances there. And to your point, I'm just now starting to scratch the surface on AI and what some of those tools are. There are some really good ones out there. I actually have one bookmarked right now. Newark, I think, is one that I keep hearing about that people are using, that is doing some really amazing renderings from hand-drawn sketches.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be another fun place to play is taking all your hand sketches and putting those in
Mhm.
there and seeing what
Yeah,
it does with it, and
yeah,
yeah. So, you are also one of our instructors at the Conscious Fashion Design Masterclass that's
yeah.
coming up. That class starts October 1st, and we have 17 amazing instructors,
It's
all
amazing.
like you that have 20 plus years of experience. We're covering so many topics. Each session is a different topic, including some on AI
Mhm.
and tech design and target consumer and branding. All kinds of juicy good topics are going to be covered, and your session is specifically tech design fundamentals,
Yeah,
and you're going to be going through much more in depth of what we talked about today. And
yeah.
yeah, so what all are you covering in that? It's 90 minutes, and I know we do hands-on, it's live interactive, so people can chat with you live and ask
Yes.
questions as you go. And
Yeah, we're gonna try to cover as much as we can the basics of some of the key elements that you need to understand if you want to get into technical design or if you are a technical designer. Number one being tech packs. So if you come join the course, we're going to be gifting you our tech pack template from Unmarked Street, which is up on our shop. So you can get that for free through the class, and we'll be helping you kind of fill out what does that look like. There will be a little bit of pre-homework to kind of
Mhm.
get ready to fill that out with us while we're live. We'll just be asking you to bring like your favorite garment with you so that we can fill out a bill of materials, fill out a garment measurement sheet, so you understand what all the different elements of a professional tech pack actually are. We're going to talk a lot about fittings and how that plays a huge role in technical design. And then we're also going to talk a lot about comments and how important it is to write clear comments for your factory, because that is, I think, such an art form, like really knowing how to write great comments and communicating properly with usually a factory where we don't have the same first language, right? So
English,
we
yeah.
both speak different languages. How do we communicate that properly? And so we'll get a little bit into that too.
Yeah, that's a critical step as well, and there's interpretations, and a lot of the factories it could be South America or Asia.
Mhm.
So I think that's a really, important thing to understand and learn. And I wanted to point out too that the course and this session is you do not have to be a designer or a tech person or a pattern maker. This is also fantastic for just your awareness.
Yeah.
If you're working with a tech designer or you're working on product and it's going through that process so that you understand, the student understands what takes place. And the more knowledge you have of the process, the
Yeah.
more obviously like awareness and understanding and smooth to
Yeah.
make things more smooth. And so I think it's just really great to gain an understanding of that, even if you're not the person in the room fitting or
Yeah.
specifically involved in that.
I always think the most talented people on our teams are the ones who understand what everyone else is also doing just a little bit. You don't have to be a master of their craft, but I think having a clearer understanding of what your teammates go through every day and what they work on every day really makes you a well-rounded and top team member.
Yeah, I recall some of the best advice, probably the best piece of advice I got like in the first year of my career was from my designer boss. I think I was working for, and she said, learn every aspect that you can. And
Yeah.
she would tell me, go into the sewing room and talk to the seamstresses,
Yep.
go to the merchandiser, figure out and learn what they're doing, or salespeople. And so I was always trying to just be super curious and
Right.
hang out and learn
Yeah.
from all those other folks. And it made it more enjoyable for me because I could understand what the salespeople were trying to achieve and do, and
Yeah.
their uh, you know, all the responsibilities or even the steps that they did in their job that I wouldn't know, you wouldn't normally know, like behind the
Right.
scenes, kind of what they're doing, all their tasks and responsibilities and whatnot. So I think that's really great advice. And, just learn as much as you can about the entire process. And if you are interested in launching your own brand or doing something like that, it's a very great opportunity to get some well-rounded, education and all that. So, where can people find you? I'm sure on LinkedIn.
Yes, definitely. You can find me on LinkedIn. We do have a business page, Unmarked Street. You can also find me. I am Rachel Erickson with a PMP at the end of my name. I am a project management professional. I am certified. So that's how you can find my personal page over there. You can also go to unmarkedstreet.com. And we own thebusinessofapparel.com as well. So you can find us over there.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. And anyone that wants to reach out, like she said, you can find Rachel or find me on LinkedIn or visit Inside Fashion Design, where we have the masterclass information as well. And if anyone has any questions, feel free. Any questions at all, you can reach me directly through email, design@insidefashiondesign.net. If you don't remember that, you can find it on the website as well. So thank you for joining us. Thank you
for having me.
Thank you, Rachel. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.